Hi all and welcome to our early survival guide and tips for Dune Awakening. If you are an experienced survival player, finding the means to survive and evading dangers might be second nature to you. But if you are completely new to the genre or need a bit time to familiarize yourself with the game's mechanics and features, then setting foot on the sands of Arrakis can easily be overwhelming. In this video, we are looking at everything beyond regular enemies that threatens your survival in the early game, so you know what's out there and how to deal with it. By the way, we have more Dune Awakening videos on our channel, so make sure to subscribe and hit that bell to not miss out on essential guides and tips. Now, before we get started, please keep in mind that this video is based on a preview build and that some content shown here might still change or be tweaked. The first thing you're being taught in game is that being exposed to the heat on Arrakis is deadly. If you stay too long in the sun, you will see that a bar in the center of your screen is slowly filling up. This is the Sunstroke meter. Once it's filled up, you will lose water at a highly increased rate, and if it goes down to 0, you will start losing health until you hydrate again. Since it's not always possible to stick to the shadows, make sure to at least try and recover in the shade before your Sunstroke meter hits max. And if you plan for trips that require extensive travel or prolonged outdoor activities like building, it's advisable to do so during the darker hours, at least until you have better equipment or skills that can help you deal with the sun. Something to keep in mind and a tip: jumping into a buggy or ornithopter also protects you from the sun. You even gain sun protection on a sand bike, even if that makes less sense. Now, closely related to managing the heat on Arrakis is managing your hydration. In the very early beginning, you will rely solely on drinking dew from dewflower fields. While you can find these across the entire map, they don't grow in abundance, so sometimes you have to search for them. Dew can also not be ingested in larger quantities, so the maximum hydration you can get from flowers is up to the first line of your hydration meter. Your next step in terms of hydration management requires you to extract blood from your fallen enemies using a blood extractor and blood sac to store the liquid. While you can also drink blood, you should consider it as a last resort, as doing so will reduce your overall health for a brief period, so it's not ideal. The main reason you want to collect blood is so that you can convert it at a blood purifier, a type of refinery you can build once you have established your first base. This will allow you to produce water in large quantities, which you'll especially need later on when you refine some of the higher tier resources. To store more water in your base, you can also craft cisterns that get automatically filled with surplus from your purifier. To carry water with you in your inventory, you can craft portable containers, like for example the liter jon. By the way, there's a really great schematic for a unique liter jon that can be purchased at a trade post in the first zone, Haga Basin South. It can hold more water than the one you can unlock in the research menu. You might even want to purchase a couple if you plan to farm dew fields for water, which is our next point. Now, before you ramp up your water production further, which you'll be able to do once you reach the steel tier of resources, there's one more item that can be very useful early on. When moving to the second zone of the game, Vermilius Gap, you'll be able to unlock and craft a scythe, which allows you to harvest water from dew flowers and refill one or more portable containers. However, while you can drink from these flowers at any time of day, the scythe can only be used at night, with the optimal dew yield being right before dawn. By the way, when adventuring through the game's ecolabs, you'll usually come across water stations that allow you to hydrate. And in many outposts and some caves, especially from Vermilius Gap and onwards, you'll also find water cisterns, which is a great backup in case you run low on water. One of the big environmental threats on Arrakis are the Sandstorms. While the Sandstorms on the Haga Basin map aren't as destructive as those in the deep desert, the game's large PvP map, they are dangerous nonetheless. You usually get a warning around 2 minutes before a sandstorm hits your location, unless you are very close to the edge of the map. When you open your map, you can also see the sandstorm and from which direction it is approaching. And should you still have fog of war covering your map, then you should still see an icon where the storm is. In addition to that, it's also visible on your compass, which can be helpful. In any case, if you aren't in your base, seek shelter as soon as you can. Be it an enemy camp or outpost, cave, trade post, or even a rock that gives you enough shelter. You can check your shelter status by the icon above your hydration meter or by pressing T. It's even possible to survive a sandstorm by self-reviving yourself when down by the sandstorm. Just make sure not to revive too early and let the revive bar tick down a bit to drag out the process, since you'll be downed again with less health and might have to repeat it. Another thing to keep in mind is that unsheltered vehicles will be heavily damaged or destroyed when caught in a sandstorm. And unprotected buildings will take some damage, so make sure to always have your power generators fueled up and running, as they power the shields of your base. Now, what would Dune be without the Sandworms? As soon as you leave solid ground and venture out onto the open sands, you will attract the attention of Sandworms that roam the map. That can be on foot or with a vehicle. For now, there's no way to sandwalk, so all you got is your stamina and bravery. When moving on the sands, you'll see a worm meter that indicates the strength of vibration and threat level of the worm. Once it turns orange and at the latest when it turns red, you better get to safety rather quickly, or the worm will lock onto you and swallow you whole. Dying to the worm is also the only instance when you really lose everything, your gear, inventory, vehicles and all. Funcom actually explained that there are sandworms with different behavioral patterns that roam the map. And in the deep desert you also have what is called ringworms, truly gigantic creatures as seen in the latest movies. Thankfully, you won't find those in Haga Basin. Later in game, you will learn how to craft a thumper, which can be placed on the sand to attract and thereby distract a sandworm from your location. This will be essential should you ever endeavor to harvest larger quantities of spice in the PvP-focused deep desert. What you can't do is damage or kill the sandworm, and you also won't be able to ride the sandworm. But that is something we might see in the future, at least the devs haven't ruled it out. There are several other hazards out on the sands and throughout the game. However, some of them are in later areas of the map, so you won't encounter them early on. Like for instance quicksand that can swallow you and your vehicle, or radiation that will kill you over time. What you will find once you move on to Vermilius Gap is drum sand. When walking or driving on patches of drum sand, the sand produces a drumming sound that mimics the vibrations of a thumper that will attract the worm. Not really something you want to do intentionally, so check your map for areas of drum sand before you travel. And then there are of course smaller hazards like poison or fire traps, often found in caves. If you know what to look for, you can easily avoid them or simply trigger them from range. While traveling and gathering resources when it's dark is great for evading the heat, there's a different threat that looms at the horizon during the night, and that's the Sardaukar Patrol ships. These ships patrol certain areas of the map throughout the night and until shortly after dawn. You recognize them by the big searchlights and the sounds the ships make. Should you get caught in one of the beams and don't manage to immediately dodge out and hide, the beam will lock onto you and suspend you in mid-air, unable to move. At the same time, a team of Sardaukar will descend up on your location with the aim to kill you. Long story short, stay out of the patrol ship's beam, or you will potentially have a tougher fight at your hands. Luckily though, the places being patrolled by the Sardaukar are limited. Now before we wrap up, a word about gear and skills that can give you useful survival bonuses. If you want to unlock your still suit, which is a massive upgrade from your starter gear and helps you with staying hydrated for longer, then make sure to follow your journey steps and complete the first trial of Akal as soon as possible. It's also worth to scour outposts for gear drops and unique schematics, complete contracts and do testing stations and larger shipwrecks whenever you can. All these might reward you with useful upgrades, and of course you level up in the process and have more skill points to spend. Several classes also have skills that can be beneficial. For example, the Bene Gesserit has passives that can reduce the buildup of Sunstroke. And the planetologist has a passive skill that improves the hydration capture of your stillsuit, just to name a few. If you need help with finding profession trainers, information about skills and more, make sure to check our channel. And that's it for our early survival guide. We hope you found some of it useful and will stay safe on your journey. As always, if you like to see more content from us and want to support our channel, please consider giving us a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe or become a member of our channel.